I want to encourage you today. God is about to step in and do something unexpected in your life. You may have been praying, believing, standing in faith, and it seems like nothing is changing. But let me remind you, just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean God isn't working. Behind the scenes, He is aligning the right people, opening the right doors, and preparing the breakthrough that will take you further than you ever imagined. Sometimes we look at our circumstances and think, this is impossible. There's no way out. I'll never get well. I'll never meet the right person. My dreams will never come to pass. But God says, get ready. I'm about to do a new thing. What He has in store for you is bigger than you've prayed for, greater than you've hoped for, and beyond what you could ever imagine. You may feel like you're stuck, like the odds are stacked against you. But don't be discouraged. The unexpected favor of God is about to show up. The right opportunity, the right connection, the right healing, it's already in motion. When God steps in, things shift. Burdens are lifted, chains are broken. You don't have to figure everything out. Just trust Him. God is working behind the scenes in your life right now. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but that doesn't mean He's not moving. Sometimes we think that because nothing is changing in the natural, God must not be doing anything. But the truth is, God does His greatest work in the unseen. He is orchestrating things that you can't even begin to comprehend. He's lining up the right people, the right moments, and the right opportunities that will launch you into your destiny. Think about a seed planted in the ground. When you put it in the soil, you don't see anything happening. Day after day, it looks the same. No change, no movement. But underground, where you can't see, something is taking place. The roots are growing, the seed is taking shape, and at the right time, it will break through the soil. That's how God works in our lives. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean He's not working. The roots of your breakthrough are growing beneath the surface. The right connections, the right open doors, the right healing, it's all taking shape. You may be in a season where it feels like nothing is happening. You've been praying, believing, staying in faith, but everything looks the same. Let me encourage you, don't give up just because you don't see immediate results. Just like that seed, your time is coming. The moment you prayed, God set the miracle into motion. The moment you believed, God dispatched the angels. The moment you took that step of faith, God aligned the next door to open. It may not happen on your timetable, but God's timing is always perfect. He knows what He's doing. In the scripture, there was a man named Daniel who prayed and fasted for 21 days, asking God for help. Every day he cried out, believing for an answer, but nothing changed. It looked like God wasn't listening. What he didn't know was that the answer had already been released the moment he prayed. The angel was on the way with his breakthrough, but there was opposition in the unseen realm. For 21 days, there was a battle, but Daniel didn't give up. He kept praying, kept believing, and on the 21st day, the angel showed up with the answer. What does that tell us? Just because you don't see anything doesn't mean your answer isn't coming. Just because nothing has changed yet doesn't mean God isn't working. The delay doesn't mean denial. The battle in the unseen realm is already being fought, and God has already set things in motion for your breakthrough. The enemy would love for you to get discouraged and walk away from your faith. He knows that if you stop believing, you'll miss out on what God has for you. But when you stand firm, when you keep believing, when you stay in faith, you'll see the promise come to pass. Maybe you're waiting for a promotion, but nothing is happening. You're believing for healing, but the symptoms haven't changed. You're praying for a loved one, but they're still making bad choices. Don't get discouraged. God is working behind the scenes. At the right time, what He's been preparing is going to break through. You're going to see things shift in your favor. That person you've been praying for is going to have a change of heart. That healing you've been believing for is going to show up suddenly. That opportunity that seemed impossible is going to be placed right in your hands. This is what happened to a friend of mine. He had been applying for jobs for over a year. He had all the qualifications, the experience, the right attitude, but nothing was opening up. He kept getting rejection after rejection. It didn't make sense, but he kept believing, kept declaring that God was working behind the scenes. One day out of the blue, he got a call from a company he had never applied to. They had seen his resume and wanted to offer him a position that was above and beyond what he had even been looking for. He was expecting a job, but God had something greater. What seemed like a season of nothing happening was actually a season of preparation. I want to tell you today, don't let what you see in the natural convince you that nothing is happening. What God is doing in the unseen is much bigger than what you can imagine. He's working on your behalf, fighting battles you can't see and preparing things that will exceed your expectations. Your job is to stay in faith. Keep believing, keep declaring, keep thanking Him in advance. The scripture says we walk by faith, not by sight. That means we don't base our trust in what we see. We base it on what we know about God. And what we know is that He is faithful. He is a promise-keeping God. If He said He's working, He's working. If He said the breakthrough is coming, it's coming. If He said He's making a way, He's making a way. So let me ask you, what have you been waiting for? What prayers have you been believing for? Don't get discouraged if you don't see anything changing yet. Trust that God is working behind the scenes. Trust that your roots are growing. Trust that your miracle is already on the way. When you keep the right attitude, when you stay in faith, when you believe that God is moving, even when you don't see it, you're setting yourself up for something bigger than you imagine. I believe that in the coming days, you're going to see things fall into place. You're going to see doors open that you never knocked on. You're going to see healing that the doctors can't explain. You're going to see restoration in your family, in your finances, in your career. God is not limited by time, by circumstances, or by what people say. He has the final say. He's already working. And when it's the right time, He's going to step in and do what only He can do. So get ready, get your hopes up, keep speaking faith, keep expecting the unexpected. The same God who turned Joseph's situation around, who delivered Daniel, who blessed my friend beyond what he asked for, that same God is working for you. You're closer than you think, and when it happens, it's going to be bigger, better, and more amazing than anything you ever dreamed. Stay in faith, because God is about to do something incredible in your life. God's unexpected favor is coming your way. You may not see how, you may not understand when, but let me tell you, when God steps in, things begin to shift. What should have taken years will happen in moments. What seemed impossible will suddenly come together. That breakthrough, that healing, that opportunity, it's already in motion, and it's going to come in a way you never expected. Too often, we try to figure everything out. We look at our circumstances, we analyze the situation, we try to connect the dots. But God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. You may have a plan for how you think things should work out, but God's plan is bigger, greater, more powerful than anything you could imagine. When He steps in, doors open that no person can shut. When He moves, favor will chase you down. Think about Ruth. She had lost her husband, left her home, and followed her mother-in-law Naomi to a foreign land. She had no idea what her future held. She wasn't trying to make something big happen. She was just being faithful, doing the right thing. One day she was out in the fields gathering leftover grain to survive, but what she didn't realize was that God was about to step in. While she was working, Boaz, the owner of the field, noticed her. He could have ignored her, he could have overlooked her, but God caused her to stand out. Boaz showed her kindness, gave her protection, and made sure she had more than enough. What seemed like an ordinary day turned into a day of divine favor. Ruth didn't see it coming. She wasn't expecting it. But that one moment changed her entire life. She went from struggling to blessed, from overlooked to highly favored, from working in the field to owning the fields. That's what happens when God's unexpected favor shows up. He knows how to put you in the right place at the right time. He knows how to cause people to be good to you, to open doors you never imagined, to bring the right connections across your path. You don't have to strive. You don't have to try to make it all happen on your own. Just stay faithful. Keep honoring God. Keep doing what you know is right. Sometimes we get frustrated because things aren't happening the way we want. We think, God, I need this job and I need it to come through this way. Or God, I need a breakthrough and I need it to happen by this date. But if you only look for God to move in one specific way, you'll miss the unexpected favor that He wants to release in your life. A friend of mine was believing for a promotion at work. He had worked hard, put in the extra hours, done everything right. He applied for the position, and it seemed like he was the best candidate, but when the company made their decision, they gave the promotion to someone else. He was disappointed, frustrated, and tempted to think, God, why didn't this work out? I was so close. What he didn't realize was that God had something better. A few months later, another company reached out to him with a position that was not only higher than what he had applied for, but it also paid significantly more and had incredible benefits. He didn't even apply for it. They sought him out. It was unexpected. It didn't happen the way he planned, but it happened the way God planned. Sometimes what looks like a disappointment is really a setup for something greater. That closed door, that rejection, that setback, it's not the end of the story. It's just God redirecting you to something better. If that promotion had gone through, my friend would have settled for less than what God had for him. But because he trusted God, he stepped into greater favor than he ever imagined. You may be facing a closed door right now. You may be wondering why things haven't worked out the way you hoped. Let me remind you, God's unexpected favor is coming. He knows what he's doing. That opportunity you thought you missed, it wasn't meant for you. That job that didn't work out, something better is on the way. That relationship that didn't last, God has someone even more amazing lined up for you. In the natural, you may not see how it's going to happen. You may be tempted to get discouraged, to settle where you are. But get ready. God is about to do something that will leave you in awe. He's about to open doors you never saw coming. He's about to bring opportunities that you didn't even apply for. He's about to show you favor that you didn't earn or deserve. This is what happened to Peter in the Bible. He had been fishing all night and caught nothing. He was exhausted, ready to give up, ready to go home empty-handed, but Jesus told him, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. Peter could have said, Jesus, I already tried that. I already worked hard. I already put in the effort. Instead, he said, because you say so, I will. When he obeyed, something supernatural happened. He caught so many fish that his nets began to break. He had to call for help because there was so much abundance. He went from lack to overflow in an instant. What changed? God stepped in. You may be in a season where it feels like nothing is going your way. You've been believing, praying, doing the right thing, but instead of making progress, it feels like you're stuck. Maybe you're facing a setback, a disappointment, a challenge that seems too big to overcome. But let me encourage you, your current struggles are not permanent. Where you are right now is not where you're going to stay. The trouble you're facing, the hardship you're dealing with, the loneliness, the sickness, the financial difficulty, it's only temporary. God is about to step in and do something unexpected. Sometimes when we go through difficult seasons, we start to think, this is how it's always going to be. I'll always struggle. I'll always be overlooked. I'll always have to fight for every little thing. But God never meant for you to stay in that place. What you're going through right now is just a chapter in your story, not the whole book. The trouble, the heartache, the challenges, they're all temporary. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that one day he would be in a position of influence, that he would help many people, but his life took a different turn. His brothers betrayed him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. He was falsely accused and put in prison for something he didn't do. Year after year, it seemed like things were going from bad to worse, but here's what I love. None of those struggles were permanent. They were just steps along the way. One moment, Joseph was in prison, forgotten and overlooked. The next moment, he was standing before Pharaoh, interpreting his dream. In an instant, he went from the lowest place to the highest place. The struggle, the hardship, the years of waiting, it wasn't wasted. God was using all of it to prepare him for something greater. That's what God is doing in your life. You may be in a difficult season, but that season is not your destination. The sickness is not permanent. The financial struggle is not how your story ends. The heartbreak, the disappointment, the setback, it's all temporary. God is getting ready to turn things around. He's about to shift things in your favor. You may not see it yet, but what He has planned is bigger than what you're facing. A friend of mine went through a season where everything seemed to be against him. He lost his job, his car broke down, and to make things worse, his landlord decided to sell the place he was renting, so he had to move. It felt like one thing after another. He told me, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm being hit from every side. Maybe you've been there, where it seems like just when you make it through one challenge, another one shows up. But what he didn't realize was that God was setting him up for something better. A few weeks later, he got an unexpected job offer. It wasn't just any job. It was a leadership position, something he had been dreaming about for years. The new job came with a company car, and on top of that, the salary increase was so great that he was able to buy a home instead of renting. What looked like a season of struggle was actually a setup for something greater. That's how our God works. The difficulties, the setbacks, the delays, they're all temporary. When God steps in, things can shift in an instant. One phone call, one good break, one unexpected opportunity, and suddenly everything changes. The key is to not get stuck in a mindset of defeat. The enemy would love for you to believe that your situation is permanent. He'll whisper, you'll always be broke. You'll always be single. You'll always struggle with that addiction. You'll never get well. But the devil is a liar. What you're facing is not permanent. It's only a season. The scripture says weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That means the difficulty has an expiration date. The struggle has an end. The sickness, the depression, the loneliness. It's not going to last forever. God already has your breakthrough on the schedule. The mistake we make sometimes is that we settle in the struggle. We start to believe the lie that this is our destiny. But you have to keep the right perspective. You're just passing through. That financial difficulty is not your final destination. That health challenge is not how your story ends. That broken relationship is not the end of your happiness. A little while ago, I met a woman who had been battling cancer. The doctors told her there wasn't much hope, but she refused to accept that as her final outcome. She kept believing, kept praying, kept declaring God's promises over her life. Today, years later, she's completely cancer-free. The doctors can't explain it. The reports didn't make sense. But God stepped in and did what only He could do. Maybe you're in a fight right now. Maybe the odds seem against you. But let me remind you, God has the final say. Your story is not over. What's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. The difficulties are temporary, but God's favor is permanent. The trouble may have come, but it's not staying. The sickness may have shown up, but healing is on the way. The financial stress may be real, but abundance is in your future. So don't give up. Don't settle in the struggle. Don't let a temporary problem become a permanent mindset. Keep standing, keep believing, keep praising, because at the right time, in the right way, God is going to step in. The breakthrough is coming. The shift is happening. The victory is already on its way. You may feel like you're in a pit, but God is about to lift you up. You may feel like you're in a prison, but promotion is coming. You may feel stuck, but divine acceleration is about to take place. The struggles are not permanent. The blessings, the favor, the opportunities, that's what's permanent. Get ready, because God is about to do the unexpected in your life. You may feel like you've reached your limit, like you've gone as far as you can, but let me encourage you, God is not finished with you yet. There are new levels, new opportunities, new breakthroughs coming your way. Just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean God is not working right now. Behind the scenes, He's lining up the right people, arranging the right circumstances, and preparing the right moments to take you where you could never go on your own. Sometimes, when we've been in a season of struggle for too long, it's easy to settle where we are. We think, this is just the way my life is. I always have this illness. I'll always struggle in my finances. I'll always be lonely. But that is not your destiny. Where you are right now is not where you're going to stay. God is about to step in and do something unexpected. Think about Abraham and Sarah. God gave them a promise that they would have a child. Year after year passed and nothing changed. In the natural, it was impossible. Sarah was well beyond the age of childbearing. Everything in their circumstances told them it was too late. But what they didn't realize was that God had already scheduled the breakthrough. One day, 3 men showed up at Abraham's tent and told him that by this time next year, Sarah would have a son. It seemed ridiculous. It seemed impossible. Sarah even laughed at the thought. But God wasn't limited by their circumstances. He wasn't concerned with their age, their timeline, or what looked impossible. When the appointed time came, Sarah gave birth to Isaac just as God had promised. That's how God works. You may have been waiting for a long time, believing, praying, standing in faith, but nothing has changed. The dream hasn't come to pass, the problem hasn't turned around, the situation hasn't improved. But God is saying, by this time next year, things are going to be different. By this time next year, you're going to see healing. By this time next year, you're going to meet the right person. By this time next year, that dream is going to come to pass. You may not see a way, but God has a way. He is not limited by what's natural. He's a supernatural God. He can do things suddenly, unexpectedly, in a way you never imagined. You may be thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get out of debt. I don't see how I'm ever going to start my business. I don't think I'll ever get married. But don't talk yourself out of it. Don't settle for less than what God has for you. He's already lined up the right breaks, the right opportunities, and the right people. A friend of mine was stuck in a situation where everything seemed to be against him. He was working a job that he didn't love, just trying to make ends meet. He had a dream to start his own business, but he didn't have the resources. It seemed impossible. Every time he thought about it, the voice in his head said, it's too late. You'll never get the right investors. It's too big for you. But one day, out of nowhere, an old friend reached out to him and said, I've been thinking about you. I want to invest in your dream. You didn't even have to ask. It wasn't something he made happen. God stepped in and made it happen. Within months, he was running his own business, doing what he loved, and more successful than he had ever been. That's what happens when God moves unexpectedly. He has ways to bless you that you haven't even thought of. He has people lined up that you haven't even met yet. He has favor that is going to open doors you never dreamed would open. The problem is too often we get stuck looking at what's not happening. I haven't met the right person. I haven't gotten the promotion. I haven't seen the healing. But just because you don't see anything doesn't mean God isn't working behind the scenes. He's setting things up. He's putting the right pieces together. He's moving things in your favor. And at the right time, in the right way, what He has planned is going to come to pass. This is what happened with the Israelites. They were in slavery for 400 years. It seemed like they would never be free. But in one night, God stepped in and turned it around. One moment they were slaves. The next moment Pharaoh was telling them to go, they left with gold, silver, and blessings beyond anything they could imagine. That's how God works. It doesn't take years. It doesn't take decades. One touch of His favor can change everything. One phone call, one idea, one opportunity, and suddenly everything shifts. That's why you can't get discouraged in the waiting. You may be tired. You may feel like nothing is happening, but keep believing. Keep trusting, keep doing the right thing, because when God moves, it's going to be bigger, better, and more amazing than you ever imagined. The Scripture says, God will do exceedingly, abundantly above all you can ask or think. That means if you can dream it, God can do even more. If you can believe for it, God can exceed it. So don't settle where you are. Don't let disappointment or delays cause you to give up. Your time is coming. Your breakthrough is on the way. The doors are about to open. The favor is about to be released. The right people are about to show up. You may not see it yet, but God is working behind the scenes. He's putting everything in place. When He steps in, it's going to be unexpected. It's going to be supernatural. It's going to be more than you ever imagined. Get ready. The struggle is temporary, but the blessing is permanent. The setback is only setting you up for something greater. What God is about to do in your life is going to leave you in awe. It's going to be so amazing that you look back and say, only God could have done this. This is your time. This is your moment. Stay in faith. Keep believing, because the unexpected is on its way. You may have situations in your life right now that seem like they'll never change. You've prayed, you've believed, you've done everything you know how to do, but nothing has improved. Maybe the medical report hasn't gotten better. Maybe the financial struggle is still there. Maybe the relationship still isn't working out. But let me encourage you, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just because you don't see a way doesn't mean that God doesn't have a way. God is not limited by what you see. He's not held back by what's against you. He's not worried about how big the challenge is. When it's your time, when the moment He has ordained arrives, nothing can stop what He has planned for you. One touch of His favor, one shift in the situation, one move of His hand, and everything can change. The challenge is we often look at our circumstances and think, there's no way this could ever work out. There's no way I could get out of this debt. There's no way I could accomplish this dream. It's too big, it's too impossible. But we serve a supernatural God. He specializes in doing what seems impossible. He takes what looks hopeless and turns it around. He takes what the enemy meant for harm and uses it for good. When He speaks, when He moves, when He steps in, things begin to shift. Think about Lazarus. He had been dead for 4 days. People had given up. They had accepted the fact that it was over. But Jesus showed up and spoke life into what was lifeless. He called Lazarus out of that tomb, and in an instant, what looked final was reversed. There may be things in your life that look like they're over. The dream looks dead. The health situation seems final. The opportunity appears to be gone. But God is saying today, I'm about to step in and do the unexpected. I'm about to bring things back to life. I'm about to open doors that no one can shut. The scripture says that God can make rivers in the desert. That means He can bring provision when it looks like there's no way. He can bring healing when the doctors say there's no chance. He can restore what looks too far gone. A friend of mine had been waiting for years for a promotion at his job. He was faithful. He was excellent. He had done everything he knew to do, but nothing was happening. Every time a position opened, someone else was chosen. He started to feel overlooked, forgotten, like maybe it just wasn't meant to be. But what he didn't realize was that God was working behind the scenes. One day, completely unexpectedly, the CEO of the company called him in and said, "We've been watching you. We see your hard work. We see your dedication. We're creating a brand new position just for you." Not only did he get the promotion, but it was an even bigger opportunity than what he had been hoping for. That's what happens when God steps in. You may feel overlooked, but God sees you. You may feel stuck, but God is setting things up. You may not see anything happening, but behind the scenes, He's working things together for your good. Too often, we put limits on what God can do. We think, if I can just get a little better, if I can just get by, if I can just make it through. But God doesn't want you to just survive. He wants you to walk in His favor, to experience His blessings, to live out His best for your life. Ephesians 3:20 says that God can do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think. That means whatever you're believing for, whatever you're hoping for, God can do even more. You may be praying for a breakthrough in one area, and God is getting ready to bless you in multiple areas. You may be expecting an answer in one way, and God is about to do something completely unexpected. Something so big, so overwhelming, that you'll stand in awe and say, only God could have done this. But here's the key. You have to stay in faith. You have to keep believing, keep standing, keep expecting. Don't let the delay discourage you. Don't let the disappointment cause you to settle. Just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it's not coming. A woman I know had been trying for years to have a child. She had prayed, she had believed, but nothing was happening. Doctors told her it wasn't possible. She could have given up, but instead she kept declaring God's promises. She kept saying, "Lord, I know you're a God of miracles. I know you have the final say." One day, out of nowhere, she got a call from a doctor who had seen her case and wanted to try a new approach. A few months later, she found out she was expecting. Today, she has not just one, but 2 beautiful children. What am I saying? God is still in the miracle working business. He's still turning things around. He's still making the impossible possible. Maybe you're believing for something right now. Maybe you've been waiting, praying, holding on. It may look like nothing is happening, but let me tell you, God is working behind the scenes. He's lining up the right people. He's preparing the right opportunity. He's arranging things in your favor in the right time, in the right way. You're going to see the breakthrough. You're going to see the healing. You're going to see the promotion. It may not happen the way you expect, but when it does happen, it's going to be better, bigger, and more incredible than you imagine. So don't give up. Don't lose hope. Don't let doubt creep in. The unexpected is coming. The shift is about to take place. The doors are about to open. Get ready, because when God moves, it's going to be sudden, it's going to be overwhelming, it's going to be supernatural, and when it happens, you'll look back and say, wow, only God could have done this. You may be facing a situation right now that seems like it's never going to change. You've done everything you can. You've prayed, you've believed, you've stood in faith, but nothing seems to be happening. The medical report hasn't improved. The doors haven't opened. The financial struggle is still there. It's easy to get discouraged and think maybe this is just the way it's going to be. Maybe this is my destiny. But let me encourage you. God is about to step in and do something unexpected. Just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean God isn't working. Just because the circumstances look impossible doesn't mean God can't turn them around. The scripture says that God is a way maker. He makes streams in the desert. He makes crooked places straight. He opens doors no man can shut. What you're believing for may seem out of reach, but the good news is you don't have to figure it out on your own. No, you don't have to make it happen in your own strength. The Most High God is fighting your battles. He's working behind the scenes, arranging things in your favor, and when it's the right time, suddenly things will shift. Suddenly the door will open. Suddenly the healing will come. Suddenly the right person will show up. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that he would be in a position of influence, that he would do something great with his life. But instead of moving forward, it seemed like everything was going in the opposite direction. His brothers threw him into a pit. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused and put in prison. It looked like the dream had died. He could have thought, I must have heard God wrong. Nothing is working out for me. But what Joseph didn't know was that God was positioning him. God was setting the stage. One day out of nowhere, Pharaoh had a dream that no one could interpret. Someone remembered Joseph in the prison and brought him before Pharaoh. In an instant, Joseph went from being in prison to being second in command over all of Egypt. One moment he was forgotten, the next moment he was promoted. That's what happens when God steps in. When He moves, it's not going to be ordinary. It's not going to be something you can predict. It's going to be sudden, it's going to be unexpected, and it's going to be bigger than you imagine. You may be in a difficult season right now. Maybe you feel like you've been overlooked. Maybe you feel like you've been stuck in a pit, waiting for something to change. But don't get discouraged. Don't give up. God knows where you are. He sees what you've been through, and He's saying, I'm about to step in. I'm about to do something that will leave you in awe. I'm about to bring you into a season of blessing, a season of overflow, a season of more than enough. A friend of mine had been struggling for years to get his business off the ground. He had a dream to expand, to take things to the next level, but no matter how hard he tried, the right connections never came. He felt stuck. He started to wonder if maybe it just wasn't meant to be. But instead of giving up, he kept believing, he kept declaring that God was making a way. Then one day, out of nowhere, a well-known investor reached out to him. They had seen his work, they loved his vision, and they wanted to partner with him. He didn't have to go looking for it. He didn't have to force it to happen. God stepped in and made it happen. Today, his business is thriving beyond what he ever imagined. That's the kind of turnaround God has for you. What you're believing for may look impossible. The situation may seem like it's never going to change. But God is saying, I have something better than what you expected. I have a breakthrough that's going to catapult you into a new level. The scripture says that God is a God of suddenlies. That means He can show up when you least expect it. He can turn things around in an instant. You may be thinking, I've waited so long. I don't see how it could ever happen. But God knows how to speed things up. He knows how to take you from the back to the front, from lack to abundance, from struggling to thriving. What God has planned for you is going to be bigger, better, and more fulfilling than anything you've imagined. That's why you can't get discouraged in the waiting. That's why you can't let disappointment cause you to settle where you are. You have to keep believing, keep standing, keep expecting, because what God has spoken over your life will come to pass. The scripture says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That means the struggle is temporary, but the blessing is permanent. The delay may feel long, but when God moves, it's going to happen so fast that you'll wonder how it all came together. So get ready. Get your hopes up. Start thanking God for what's on the way. You may not see anything happening yet, but trust that behind the scenes, things are shifting in your favor. The right people are being lined up. The right breaks are coming. The healing is already en route. One day you're going to look back and say, wow, I never saw that coming. I never imagined it would happen this way. I never expected God to do something this amazing. That's the kind of blessing He has in store for you. Now, my challenge to you is this. Stay in faith. Don't talk yourself out of what God has promised you. Don't let doubt convince you to settle. The unexpected is coming. The shift is about to happen. The breakthrough is on its way. And when it does, it's going to be so incredible, so overwhelming, so beyond what you dream that you'll say, only God could have done this.